Buy, sell, keep, avoid is back for Game Week 14. Yes guys, Game Week 13 isn't quite over, but with deadlines coming thick and fast, it's time to have a look at those transfer trends and what you should be doing ahead of Game Week 14. Let's get going. So as always, this video will be divided into two sections. First of all, we will be having a look at players you might already have in your team and which of those you should be keeping and which you should be selling. After that, we will move on to the second section where we will be deciding on replacements for those players with some buys, but also some avoids. Players will be tier listed, so those at the top of the list will be higher priority and those at the bottom, players we probably don't want quite as much. And we're going to start off with the forwards and which ones you should be keeping and which ones you should be selling on. And first of all, I have to say, despite João Pedro blanking in Game Week 13, lots of frustration there for new owners in particular. He would be a player I would be looking to keep. I still think pound for pound, he is the best value for money forward in the game right now. So definitely think you should keep him with that Leicester fixture, Crystal Palace and West Ham fixtures coming up very soon as well. Watkins, another player to keep if you do have him already in your team. I think he's going to be very, very good in the next couple of fixtures. We've got Brentford, Southampton and Brighton in 17 as well. So nice fixtures coming up for him. And I think he's actually improved a little bit over the past couple of game weeks. As for Haaland, if you still have him in your team somehow, I would actually keep him this week. I know it's very controversial, and last week he probably would have been a sell, but things change from week to week in my opinion. And if you just haven't sold Haaland for whatever reason, then, you know, you probably would have done it by now if you really wanted to, right? Let's be honest. And Nottingham Forest at home is actually not such a bad fixture for Haaland compared to some of the other premium players in Game Week 14 specifically. So maybe you can hold off on selling Haaland and keep him for this fixture to see what he can produce. Potential captain option if you want to go there as well. Surely he's got to get better at some point or another. As we know, his data is still phenomenal. Couple of monitors here. Raul Jimenez, first of all, at home against Brighton. I think it's a pretty decent fixture for him. Penalty taker, we assume, and his data is still not too bad. So I don't think he's a player we need to rush to sell. Same with players like Wissa. Yes, the fixtures turn slightly worse, and I do think that Wissa's time as the central striker for Brentford is limited with Igor Thiago building up his minutes. So there will be a time to sell Wissa, in my opinion, but I think given the form he's in at the moment, you can just keep him. He's still taking shots. He's still getting into dangerous areas. So he's a player who is fine to keep despite the fixtures. And we do often say with those attacking players, sometimes the form of the player is just as important, if not even more important than the fixtures. And Wissa certainly has form going into Game Week 14. Kai Havertz did manage to score in Game Week 13, but he is slightly lower down on the monitor list because I'm not sure he provides that value for money with his limited data. Data not looking too great for Havertz compared to some of the much cheaper strikers available to us right now. And the next three fixtures for Arsenal, in general, they're not that great. They're okay, but it's really nothing special for another few weeks. And Isak, definitely one to monitor. I know some people will be looking to sell him, but I think it's situational. If you do have a Semenyo or a Rodgers on your bench potentially there, then maybe you can just play a Semenyo or Rodgers this week and bench Isak, or just try and play him. Apparently, Isak's injury that he has picked up in Game Week 13 is just an impact injury. So it's not going to be a muscular issue. So that is usually a good sign. I don't know if he's going to be available for the short turnaround to Game Week 14. But by Game Week 15, when his fixtures are really nice against Brentford and Leicester, actually, you know, he could be absolutely perfectly 100% fine for those really good games. We know Isak has got some phenomenal data so far since returning to fitness, which is really, really nice. So hopefully he can pick up that form once again when he does return from injury, whether that's straight away in Game Week 14 or in Game Week 15-16 with those really, really nice fixtures. So Isak, understand if people want to sell him, understand if people are frustrated, but for me, he is not quite a definite sell. Danny Welbeck, however, is edging towards these sell areas because his data is just so poor. He has really dropped off a cliff with his data, really not looking like he's contributing very much over the past few game weeks, barely taking any shots. So I do think his time is maybe limited, and Fulham away maybe a good time to sell him to perhaps another forward if you do still have him. Solanke away against Bournemouth, again, kind of like Havertz, not sure he's got that value for money at that kind of 7 million plus price tag. I think we can do a little bit better. And I think there are just better forwards available to us right now. And as for Wood, I think his time is finally over. 1 goal in the past 3 game weeks, and that was the penalty in game week 13 against Ipswich. So his data has always been pretty poor compared to his output anyway. And it is the penalties that have been saving him. But certainly now the fixtures turn a lot worse. I think it is finally time to release Wood from your team. Release the Wood, guys. It's time to go. Now, anyone who's seen the Game Week 13 game for Bournemouth against Wolves will know that Bournemouth had an absolute field day in that game, and you would imagine that Semenyo, had he played, and if he wasn't suspended, would have actually run riot in that game. So certainly, if you do still have Semenyo in your team, looking ahead to 14, 15, 16, I would really look to keep him in my FPL team right now if you still do have him. So Semenyo is now going to be a keep. I think it's going to be a really useful FPL asset to have. Same with Rodgers if we're looking at those other cheap players. Both of these guys are very cheap and they have good fixtures coming up that you can certainly play them in. Bruno Fernandes, I think it's a little too early to sell him. I guess if anything changes at the end of Game Week 13, because I am recording this video slightly early, as we did mention. Don't really have a choice, unfortunately. But yeah, certainly if you do have a Fernandes, I think he's a keep. I think a lot of people who are actually selling other midfielders might actually be looking to bring Fernandes in if they have the money. So guaranteed 90-minute man on penalties, on set pieces, with very good data to back him up as well. The fixtures are not always amazing, but, you know, even Forest and Man City, there is potential there for a new-look Man United side who you hope are going to improve week on week. So Fernandes a keep. Monitors, Smith Rowe, think he is okay to keep against Brighton, but he's probably going to be on the chopping block pretty soon. Johnson, Garnacho, Luis Diaz could face a little bit of rotation during a busy fixture period, but overall, I think they are okay players to own. One note on Luis Diaz, I don't know yet because I'm recording this on Saturday night, but I'm imagining that Luis Diaz does not start against Man City and then maybe does start in the midweek against Newcastle. So, you know, kind of look at Diaz's minutes, whatever happens on Sunday. If he doesn't play, then that's probably points towards maybe some minutes in 14. If he does play, then maybe that worries you and pushes him down into the sell category. Let's go to the sells though. Mbeumo, I think, just drops into the sell category now. I know people are very reluctant to sell Mbeumo because obviously he has performed brilliantly at certain times during this season. But to be totally honest, the recent game weeks have not been good for him at all. 1 shot in the past 4 game weeks. Yes, just 1 shot. And if you look at his XG, some of that is a penalty XG. The goal that he scored was like a complete fluke. The other goal he scored in the past 6 game weeks. So his data is seriously down, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. There is a possibility that Brentford changed their system to get Mbeumo more involved, but with Igor Thiago coming into the team, we've got Wissa and Sharda showing some form. I think Mbeumo continues to play out wide. That is just my personal opinion, though. If you think that there is going to be a change in system and Mbeumo will play as part of a front 2, then, you know, fair enough, maybe he could get more involved. But right now, he's not doing the business, and I think that makes him a sell ahead of these fixtures. He has no form and no fixtures, which I think is the difference between him and a player like Wissa. McNeil, also a pretty easy sell, I think, with the bad fixtures coming up. He's not really producing too much recently. And Winks, unavailable, so I think that's a good opportunity for you to maybe upgrade that 5th midfielder slot in your FPL team. Go for a Rodgers or a Semenyo, upgrade that 5th midfield slot and have that cover rather than kind of the deadwood Winks rotting on your bench every game week. On to some keeps, and 0-pointer Ryan Aït-Nouri is certainly a keep. Everton is just the best fixture if you want a clean sheet, isn't it, really? I mean, they're just the 0-0 specialists, and you can imagine that if Wolves are going to get a clean sheet, this is the kind of fixture you would expect it to be in, really, wouldn't you? So definitely still a player I would be more than happy to have in my team and a keep for me. If you haven't sold Gvardiol yet, then Nottingham Forest at home is actually a pretty decent fixture for a defensive asset. We know he has a bit of attacking potential there as well. So if you held on to him so far beyond that Game Week 13 Liverpool game, you may as well hold on to him for another week. Dalot, don't love the fixture against Arsenal, but if you can bench him, I think he's going to be okay for some of these other fixtures. Nottingham Forest at home is a reasonably good fixture for a defender next week, and Dalot seems to be a player getting minutes and playing in a reasonably advanced position right now, which is positive stuff. Monitor Romero, I don't think he'll play in game week 13, but if he's back for 14, which I think there's a good chance he is, I think he's a fine asset to hold. It's not ideal to have him, but I don't think he is a priority sell. Same thing with Harwood Bellis, not a priority sell for me. 4.1 million defender. He was probably on your bench anyway. No point wasting a transfer upgrading a player who is just going to be on your bench anyway, but maybe certain situations might justify selling him. Lewis, another player to monitor. I think there's going to be rotation potentially coming up, and you know, although I don't mind the fixtures, we don't even know if he's going to be playing in them. Maybe you can apply the same logic to Gvardiol, but I'll leave that with you guys. Aina, horrible fixtures coming up defensively for Forest. So we'd be looking for a fire sale of all Forest defenders, whichever ones you have in your team right now. And I guess the players to sell are those players who are just simply unavailable. Anderson has an injury. We don't know when he's going to be back. Keane is not playing anymore now that Branthwaite has returned to the Everton lineup. And Konate could be out for 5-6 weeks, which it could be 8 or 9 game weeks because of the fixture congestion. So certainly Konate would be a priority sell for me if you didn't manage to sell him ahead of game week 13. We can definitely do some good things with the money we will be spending as our Konate replacement. And before we go on to the buys, guys, make sure you do drop a like on the video. Massively appreciated. We're working on the weekend, man. Come on, show some respect. And do subscribe as well if you're new around here. We got you covered for the very busy fixture schedule coming up in FPL. So this might be controversial after a blank, but João Pedro, again, like I mentioned, pound for pound, still the best value money forward in the game of FPL right now. Penalty taker, talisman, you know, looking really good for his numbers per minute played, building up his fitness, and we got some good fixtures coming up after the Fulham game, and you never know what can happen in the Fulham game as well. So this is a player, I still consider him to be in form despite one blank, and I'm sure he'll get back to business before too long. So still a player I would be looking to buy this game week as one of the priorities. Now, Nicholas Jackson could technically get a yellow card this week, and if he does get a yellow card against Aston Villa today as you're watching this, guys, then that changes everything and he would be suspended for game week 14. But if he makes it through game week 13 without any naughty business, then he's certainly going to be a potential player to buy at 8 million. If you do really want to sell Isak, or you've got a Havertz or Solanke, someone like that, you don't really want to take them forward in your FPL team, then Jackson is going to be a really nice replacement for you. And I do actually prefer Jackson this week to Cunha because that Everton away fixture is actually pretty tough. Everton putting up some of the best defensive numbers over the past couple of months. So it could be that they are just going to be a decent team for clean sheets right now. And if so, Wolves may struggle a little bit. That said, it is Cunha, and because he has been in such good form over the past few weeks, I would still consider him a buy, even in these less than perfect fixtures. And we know about the fixtures after that too. Really, really nice. Monitor Watkins, he is another potential, expensive striker replacement, I think, with Brentford at home, the next fixture, followed by Southampton. Wasn't super keen ahead of the Chelsea game, but now, I'm feeling it a little bit more. Fixtures turning a little bit for Aston Villa here. Evan Nilsson is definitely one to monitor right now as well. He's got some good fixtures coming up. I guess it depends on the fitness of those Spurs centre-backs as whether this is worth targeting. Strand Larsen still probably would not be looking to go there if I didn't have him already. Although congratulations to all of you who already owned Strand Larsen for game week 13. That was a lovely brace for him. Kai Havertz, one to monitor. Not super keen to go in on him quite yet with these next fixtures. Don't think it's quite worth it given his data is so poor. And players like Wissa, if you don't have him already, I think you're probably past the best time to own Wissa. And like I kind of keep mentioning, the Igor Thiago is looming in the background and he could cause some pain for any Wissa owners. So if you haven't already got him, I think it's too late to buy him. Wood, yeah, you're not going to buy him ahead of these fixtures. As for Wilson, I've put him in here because I know a few people will be thinking, oh, Isak potentially injured. Could this be an opportunity to go for Wilson? I love the thought process, don't get me wrong, but it's just a bad idea right now. Isak's injury is not severe. Liverpool is the fixture up next. I don't think I'd be looking to go for a player like Wilson over this kind of busy fixture period. No way. Far too rotation risk. Onto our midfielders to buy, and it's the same three players that we mention every game week. Palmer, Saka, and Salah are the top three priority kind of midfielders to go for. I know they're pretty expensive, but to have these three players in your squad, honestly, it feels good. It really does. Palmer would be the priority for me because he has the best fixture against Southampton. And I think Palmer is probably the best captain option for game week 14 as well. Some people might say they like Haaland or Saka or maybe even Salah, but for me, it's Palmer for the best captain in 14. So really important to own him ahead of this fixture. Saka, really good game week 13. Really, really good. 3 assists and obviously the penalty goal as well. Only 2 assists, outside of the penalty, and there was a corner in there as well. So let's not get too hyped up on Saka. But I rate this player a lot. I kind of mentioned last week that I think Saka has that Hull potential where I don't think he had that previously in the season. And that's all about Ødegaard. Now Ødegaard is back. It has really unlocked Saka to his maximum potential. And Man United at home, he could do some damage there. He certainly can. But it has to be said, the fixtures are mid for him. But he's good enough that he can succeed even in these medium fixtures. Same with Salah. He's another player who constantly does best no matter who the opposition is. Fabulous data from him. And I don't know if he's going to score in game week 13 yet or not. But he is my captain in game week 13. So fingers crossed he does some damage against City and then can continue that ahead of the following fixtures there. Now, outside of the big 3 premiums, there are some other players I would be monitoring right now. And the main 2 would be Bowen and Mitoma. I really like these players as potential Mbeumo replacements if you are looking to sell Mbeumo right now. Bowen, actually, his data is a little bit better than I thought it was. It's nothing crazy. It's nothing incredible, but 7.4 million, it's an okay price, and the fixtures, they really are good. Leicester, Wolves, Bournemouth, and Brighton in the next 4. That's certainly good enough for him to get a tune out of those fixtures. So definitely a player to have a look at ahead of game week 14. Don't think he's a must-buy or anything like that, but he's a player you could try out in your FPL team. Caldwell Mitoma has these great fixtures as well, and has been performing, did perform in game week 13. Got a couple of goals in recent game weeks, but again, he's not a slam dunk player. His data is better than Bowen's, but with Fulham away the next fixture, a little bit of rotation risk, just a small amount. And, I don't know if I'm crazy about him, but if you're just trying to find a mid-price midfielder, then Bowen and Mitoma are really the only major options right now. So you have to ask yourself the question, I suppose, if you have like a midfielder you want to sell, maybe it's Mbeumo, maybe it's Bruno, I don't know. You have to ask yourself, is the replacement really any better? And I think in Mbeumo's case, the answer is probably yes, but someone like Bruno, it's probably no. So let's move on to the final monitors. Rodgers is on here. Not sure if I would buy him unless I was desperate for a cheap midfielder for team value reasons. And Ødegaard, I don't think he covers Saka, is my short answer here. If you want to get Saka, don't cut corners with this one. Make it happen, even if it means taking a -4. Ødegaard is a good option, but the penalty that Saka gifted him in game week 13 is maybe encouraged Ødegaard transfers a little more than is necessary. Again, with Ødegaard, he's a brilliant football player, but for FPL, I don't know if the fixtures are good enough to justify an 8.3 million price tag on him. And finally, avoids Maddison. With midweek game weeks, I think we could be in some trouble with Maddison, and the rotation we have seen from him in recent game weeks has been overperforming his numbers by quite some margin as well. To score 3 goals from 5 shots in the past, 5 game weeks really, from my data here, it's something. So I'm not sure I'd go here. Don't think the fixtures are quite good enough to justify that. We've got Bournemouth, Chelsea and Liverpool in the next 4 for Spurs. Would not be looking to buy. Kluivert, hat-trick of penalties in game week 13, but it's not every game week you get a hat-trick of penalties. So I know some people will be looking to go here, but outside of those penalties, honestly, Kluivert's data is really not that good. It's really nothing special. He's an okay cheap player, but he's not a player you'd pick over Rodgers or Semenyo or someone like that. So he is still going to be an avoid for me unless you really think there's going to be more penalties against Spurs, Ipswich and West Ham. But it is a freak. This season, we've hardly seen any penalties. So for him to get 3 in one match is pretty crazy, really. Don't expect too much of that going forward. But hey, I guess you never know. But for me, he is going to be an avoid. He seems like one of those players you'll buy now because you think it's a good idea. But then in a few weeks, you'll kind of look back at yourself and think, why did I do that? Same situation with Kevin Schade, who unfortunately is just rotation risk, right? 4 substitute appearances in the last 6, only 2 starts. With Igor Thiago coming in, Wissa's there, and Burmo's there is limited spaces in the Brentford attack. And although Schade has maybe bought himself a start against Aston Villa away, I don't think it's guaranteed. And honestly, are the fixtures good enough to jump in on this Brentford attacker right now? We know with Schade so far this season, it's a blank every game week, usually a 0 or a 1 pointer. And just because he got a hat-trick one week, I don't think it's enough for me to justify buying him quite yet. But I'm open to be proven wrong. This could be the start of something very, very magical. But right now, I'm not convinced enough by Schade to go in there. Let's look at some defenders now. Timber is probably the number 1 defender to buy right now. I think Arsenal still putting up really good defensive numbers. And given that there's not really many defenders to pick from right now who are scoring points, I would say Timber looks like a reasonably good option. 5.5 million. He says he's feeling fit right now. And, with White out, he should play right back pretty much every single game, making those nice triangles with Ødegaard and Saka. Really like that combo on the right-hand side, which means he is going to have a little bit of attacking threat there as well, which could be pretty nice. So a little bit of attacking threat, playing for a very good defense. These are good positive signs for a defender, and I think justify his 5.5 million price tag. Aït-Nouri's still a player to buy ahead of Everton. Really like this fixture. But how about this one? Emerson, yeah, bit of a differential here. Don't know if too many people are talking about him, but I think they will be now. But here's the thing. There is no defender in the Premier League right now on current form who is putting up better attacking numbers than Emerson. So honestly, guys, if you're just looking, you're saying, okay, clean sheets, they're hard to come by. We don't know when they're going to be. Maybe they'll happen in some of these easier fixtures. Maybe they won't. But what I want is someone who I know is going to have attacking potential any game week. That is Emerson, because he's on set pieces, free kicks, corners, bombing down, putting in crosses from that left-hand side. I genuinely think for 4.4 million, yes, West Ham are not a great defense, but with the fixtures ahead and with the attacking potential that he has, he's just as good as any other defender in the game right now, and therefore I would be having a little look at him. I quite like him as a differential buy. I may even go there myself this week. Now, Wan-Bissaka is the other West Ham defender that I'm sure a lot of people are looking at. I do prefer Emerson, but Wan-Bissaka scored 2 goals in 2 game weeks, and he's making a lot of those kind of inside runs inside on that right-hand side, and getting in really dangerous areas and taking shots. That's what we've seen the last 2 game weeks. If he continues to do that against Leicester and Wolves, then we could see more goals from him. But again, is there enough to back up that Wan-Bissaka is a good attacking defender? Historically, he's just not. Whereas someone like Emerson, yeah, we kind of already know that he's a decent attacking fullback. Wan-Bissaka, not really what he's known for. Other players to monitor, we've got Gabriel here. I think if Gabriel was declared fit by Mikel Arteta, he would be right at the top of this list. But the fact is, he will not. That will not happen. Arteta will not tell us, and we will always have some worries about Gabriel, who was substituted at half-time. Now, apparently, that was because they were just trying to protect Gabriel, and the game was pretty much wrapped up for Arsenal. So they were trying to protect him because he was carrying a little bit of a knock. Don't know what that means for game week 14. I would be like 80-90% sure that Gabriel is starting in game week 14, but given that it is a midweek fixture, I'm not 100%, and that's why he's a player to monitor. If you think he will start and you don't have him in your team, then you can certainly consider buying him this week. And, you know, like I say, he will go to the top of the defender priority list. Playing for a good defense, has that attacking potential, which is a rare combination right now. And you could say that Van Dijk has a bit of that as well. Fixtures may be a little trickier for Liverpool in the next 4, though. So not 100% sure on Van Dijk at that slightly more premium price. And as for Saliba, there is no attacking threat, so just go for Gabriel or Timber. Not very much point in going for Saliba. Not too keen on this defensive pick. And avoid Aina. Terrible fixtures. We spoke about him already. Not keen on Pedro Porro in this fixture run either. A lot of tough fixtures against teams that can score goals in this run. And Mazraoui ahead of Arsenal. Again, not really the right time to be buying Mazraoui, in my opinion. But hey, maybe next game week against Forest, he might be slightly higher up the list. But for now, no sorry. And quickly on goalkeepers, Raya and Sanchez. If you have them, keep them. Like these picks. And I know Raya not scoring points in game week 13, but the points will come. Still think he's a really good goalkeeper to own. Same with Sanchez. Vicario and Ramsdale are sells because they are injured. Pretty much the only reason I would ever sell a goalkeeper outside of a wild card is if they were injured or suspended. Pretty much it. And as for the other categories down here, we've got Raya and Verbruggen as a buys. I would still say these are my top 2 goalkeepers to buy this week. I would maybe put Sanchez in that mix as well. And avoid Kelleher, as Alisson will be back very soon. And Onana, just a bad time to buy him ahead of the Arsenal fixture and the City fixture in game week 16. But those are all the players I have to talk about in today's video. If there's anyone we didn't mention today, let me know in the comments section and we will give them a rating. Are they a buy, sell, keep, avoid? Maybe they're just a monitor. Hopefully not. But yes, leave your comments, guys. Do drop a like if you enjoyed this one. Subscribe if you're new around here. We will be back for another video tomorrow and again the next day. I'll see you later, mates. Bye-bye.